I know, that might seem weird to you, but don't worry. As we go along, you're going to start to get this. Now, back to drugs. To be fairly honest, I've done a lot of drugs. Some are considered illegal by your species, others are considered the only way. And of course, as we just discussed, that's false. So, what is psychiatry all about? Why doesn't it work for everyone? I mean, it should, right? Or maybe we have to, kind of like work with other things, figure out all these other chemicals, all this other stuff. Nah, that's not the problem. You see, there is no right answer to anything in life, except for the answer that works for you. Now, your answer may work for someone else, and for this to happen, you're going to have to be able to communicate your answer well, and without strife. The second you think you know the answer for everyone or anyone besides yourself, is the second you're elevating yourself above the ranks, and you are deciding to be stupid. Sorry, I can't lie about that. It's wrong to believe that you are a god. Now, I'm going to teleport you back to June 8th, 2009, to a transmission of Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie for a bit. Hold on. I promise you won't be let down. And when we get back, I'm going to wrap this up for us. All right?
You have been on
Thanks.
this program with us going back even in the Art Bell days, where you bridge science and spirituality with a lot of your work. Tell me a little bit about the biology of belief.
Well, basically it was a whole transformation in my life. I was teaching in a medical school, teaching the conventional story about genetic control and how genes determine our traits and characters. And while I was teaching that, I was doing work on cloning stem cells, and that was back about 1967, so it was like 40-some years ago. And I was cloning these very important stem cells, which means that I was selecting one single cell, put it into a petri dish by itself, and then after it divides and divides and divides, you have thousands of cells in the dish, but they were all genetically identical. Split them into 3 groups, put them into 3 different petri dishes with slightly different culture medium, and in one they form bone, in one they form muscle, and one they form fat cells. And to my surprise, of course, the question is, well, what controls the fate of the cells? And the first thing you start with, well, they were all genetically identical. So the only thing that was different was the environment. And all of a sudden, my career went off in this whole other tangent away from genes and recognizing how the environment, or most importantly, our perception of the environment, is what actually controls our behavior and our genetic activity. So the biggest transformation in the world was, in medical school, I was teaching that people were victims. You didn't pick your genes, and you can't change your genes, and apparently they control your fate, so you could always claim, I'm a victim of these genes. And what the new research revealed was that it's all based on perception of the environment or perception of your reality, and that if you change your perception, you change your genetic activity. So the difference was like, it was shocking because it was going from a belief of victimization to the fact that we could be masters. We just need to change our perceptions. And of course, this is what Wayne's work is primarily going into is, okay, so what do we do to go in there and change those perceptions? Because once you do, you become a master of your life. And it's just the most amazing thing in the world because it accounts for all those kinds of remarkable healings, spontaneous remissions, and things that people can do that almost seem magical and mystical.
Absolutely. And you look at this a lot, Wayne, in Excuses Be Gone, where you also make reference quite a bit to mind viruses. What are they?
Well, that was the other book that I got as I was starting to write this. And, when these kind of things happen, I don't treat them as accidents. I have a dear friend who brought over a book. Her name's Tiffany, and she brought over this book, Virus of the Mind, by Richard Brody. And he was talking, it says the subtitle has something to do with it's the science of the meme. And I knew, I had heard the term meme in the past and memetics and so on, but I really didn't quite have a full grasp on it. So I started another one of the books that I was going to skim, and then I began to go into it in depth. And what he speaks about is these, that a virus is, like a virus in the body And a virus in a computer has three functions. You know, the first function of a virus is to duplicate itself, just keep duplicating. The second function of a virus is to infiltrate wherever it can, any kind of an opening that it has. And the third is to spread from one organism to another, from one computer to another, whatever it might be. And we can usually pinpoint what these viruses are. We can look under a microscope. Bruce is a cell biologist. I mean, he's looked at these, I'm sure. But the kind of things that he's talking about are ideas, which are memes that are placed into our heads when we are very, very young, and they are infiltrate, and they duplicate, and they spread from one person to another, and they become these cultural beliefs that we go around, and then most people go around with a whole host of these kinds of beliefs that I just call excuses. I can't help the way I am. It would take me a very long time to change. I'm too old. I'm too scared. I'm too busy. I'm a woman. I live in the wrong part of town. Whatever it might be, all of these kinds of things that we begin to hang on to as beliefs and perceptions, like Bruce is speaking about. And if we change, I've often said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I mean, quantum physics has taught us that the way that we observe, what we observe is affected by the way that we observe it, the perceptions that we have about it. And so the magic of understanding these viruses and understanding what Bruce is talking about here in the biology of belief is that we can become so powerful as individuals that we can not only overcome like these genetic malformations that we may have in our life, but all of these ideas that were placed into us about what our limitations are, about what we can do, what we can't do. And I say the display quote at the beginning of Excuses Begun is, don't believe everything you think, because most of the stuff that you think just simply doesn't hold up. And then I created this paradigm for changing it, and we put it to work.
All right, guys, I hope that was some pretty interesting food for thought. This is the end of the broadcast, but remember, attitude is your gateway to reality. Not mine, not anyone else's, but yours. Next time, I'll be talking more about how to travel time. Well, you see, we already do travel time, mostly in 24 hours, although you may decide to travel in your past regrets or your future worries. Hopefully, I'll help you get a grip on what is important, the moment you're in right now. Over, out, tuned in, and dropped up. This has been Lexi in Lightspeed.
Soon we will participate, learning all the methods and the ends. Weapons are just for sport, 'cause there's nothing